Perfect, we're ready to go.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're here for the West Basin Municipal Water District Engineering and Operating Committee meeting and special meeting of the Board of Directors. And we'll start with the call to order, which is now, and if we can have a determination of the floor, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, so we'll do a quick roll call, starting with Director Williams.
Here.
Director Deere. Director Gray. Director Houston. Director Alvarez.
Here.
So we have a quorum for the committee, but not for the special board meeting.
Okay. So moving on to public comment, do we have any public comments?
We have no public comments in the room, and if anyone on the platform would like to make themselves known, if they would like to make a public comment, please do so by raising your hand. I do not see anyone with their hand raised, so it seems we have no public comment for today's meeting, although if it may please the chair, I could just make a very quick remark. Quick. Yeah, I was quick in the F&A today, and I'll just repeat my comment here.
Really quick?
He's quick.
Okay. You have a reputation now.
Okay, I gotta improve my brand. Okay, so I just want to wish the committee here and staff and our district residents a happy Hispanic Heritage Month, recognizing that Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates the cultural traditions of those communities who identify as Latinx and all of the important contributions that those communities provide to both our district and the nation at large. The district has certain celebratory activities planned for this month, and I'm happy to say that we're going to have fun while we do so. And we have a special guest lined up to appear before the board on Monday. It's one of the LADWP commissioners, Ms. Cynthia Ruiz. And so she'll be with us to share some Hispanic Heritage celebratory remarks with our board and with our community. I think that'll be remarkable, in addition to the opportunity to have a proclamation signed by the board recognizing the month and perhaps a photo opportunity with the board around that. So with that, I'll end my remarks there and turn it back over to you, Chair.
Okay. And I will say muchas gracias.
De nada.
Okay, so then we'll move on to presentations. I don't believe we have any, but.
We do not have any.
On there?
We have no presentations for today.
All right, then the action calendar is next, and the first item up is a supply and delivery of the chlor-alkali chemicals. And Mr. General Manager, if you could introduce that item.
Absolutely, and I believe this item, and we have our Senior Operations Engineer, Susanna Lee, here to provide the presentation, is responsive to the board's direction to rebid the chemical contracts given the escalating prices that we have observed over the course of the contracts that we have. And so the engineering and operations team has done exactly that. And I believe we're bringing forward the results of that bid. So Susanna, please.
Thank you, Frank. Good afternoon, members of the board. As Gray introduced, this item is the award for the chlor-alkali chemical contracts for 6 months term until March 2023. And the chlor-alkali chemicals include sodium bisulfite, sodium hydroxide, and sodium hypochlorite. And these three chemicals are part of the many chemicals that brings the success of our recycled water treatment processes. So the application of these chemicals are included and described in the memo. As the board is well aware that the ongoing chemical market constraints that has brought much impact to the chemical pricing throughout this last fiscal year. And these constraints including rise of raw material pricing overseas, supply chain constraints, and which results from lack of drivers, reduced number of chemical factories, to the recent rail car delivery issues, as well as the proposed TSCA rule that may be banning the asbestos used in chemical manufacturing processes. All these together pose a continuing problems for our vendors to have a reliable long-term pricing. So in April 2022, as Greg mentioned, that the board approved the approval of the renewal chemical contracts to be adjusted for the new fiscal year 2022 for a 6-month term, which ends December 15, 2022. At the time of the renewal, the vendors make their best efforts in anticipating the pricing for that 6-month duration. The continued constraints in the chemical market really pose a problem for the vendors to make pricing beyond that 6 months term. So JCI Jones Chemicals, which is the current chlor-alkali chemical vendor, make the adjustment for the new fiscal year term. But however, subsequently in July 2022, they requested a new price adjustment. During the July board meeting, West Basin Board have approved the unit price adjustment, and then that, as such, at that time, board also directed staff to issue an IFQ for these chemicals. So staff issued an IFQ invitation for quotes on August 15, 2022 for the 3 chlor-alkali chemicals. West Basin received 2 to 3 quotes for each of the chemicals. The submitted quotes are summarized in attachment A. Staff evaluated the quotes for each of the chemical and identified the lowest quote. Table on page 4 of the memo summarizes the lowest bidder's pricing, which also happens to be JCI Jones, for all 3 chemicals. 2 of the chemicals increased by 4.8%, as shown on page 5 of the memo, while sodium hydroxide decreased by 8%. As I mentioned, JCI Jones is the low bidder, and they have confirmed that this pricing shall be held for the contract duration until the March 2023 timeframe. And based on the budgeted sales, the fiscal year 22-23, the operation O&M budget for these 3 chemicals, the monthly spending on these chemicals was about $500,500 per month. The July unit price increase brought the total monthly average for these 3 chemicals to $584,450. For the 2 months, August and September, the cost impact of that price adjustment was calculated to be about $168,000. With the approval of the new unit price listed in the summary above, the total average monthly cost for these 3 chemicals will further increase to $599,700. The estimated increase to the fiscal year 22-23 budget for the 6 months duration is estimated to be about $595,000, and the potential additional costs will be taken from the West Basin Reserve funding. And as chemical is, they're integral part of the recycled water production. So with the current volatility and all the circumstances surrounding the chemical industry, staff recommends the board authorize the general manager to award the contracts to JCI Jones. With that, I will read the recommendation that the board authorizes the general manager to enter into agreement with the following chemical vendor for the supply and delivery of the chlor-alkali chemical beginning October 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023. Sodium bisulfite, JCI Jones Chemicals, Inc. to supply and delivery sodium bisulfite at 0.5323 per dry pound. Sodium hydroxide, JCI Jones Chemical to supply and deliver sodium hydroxide at 0.5341 per dry pound. And sodium hypochlorite, JCI Jones Chemicals to supply and deliver sodium hypochlorite at $1.69 per gallon. In addition, staff requests that the board authorize the general manager to adjust the fiscal year 2022 to 23 West Basin Chemical budget from the original approved budget of $12,886,000 to $13,678,700. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay.
If the, as long as the, excuse me, as long as the general manager is satisfied that this is, these are reasonable and fair prices.
Well, I think we're kind of constrained by market conditions as Susanna Lee described. We've already seen the price instability over time. We followed through with what the board asked for, and the market has responded. And so I recommend that we move forward on that basis. The alternative would be to continue under the current contract, but we know that the vendors have not been honoring those prices under the current contract. It seems now JCI is indicating that they'll maintain a firm pricing schedule for the next 6 months. So I think it's within our interest to go forward.
Thank you.
So we don't have any other directors online, just the.
We could check again. Director Deere? Director Gray? Director Houston? It appears we do not.
Okay. I do have a comment, and basically, Greg, you kind of touched on it. So part of the reason for going out and getting bids was because we were having this recurring every couple of months coming back and having to approve increases in chemical costs. So let's just go out and try to lock in a longer term rate so we're not experiencing the same thing. In the package that you sent us, there's no agreement for the purchase of this. You alluded that the vendor is committed to holding the price. My question is, will that be in our agreement that they have to hold the price for the term of the agreement, which in this case is 6 months?
Yes, we'll put that language in the contract.
And then the second item is, this is above the budgeted amount in the budget. And the discussion is that this would come out of the reserves, which would be appropriate. But before going to the reserves, there may be savings in the overall budget this year that may cover that. In which case that would pay first before the reserves.
And absolutely, we'll look into that as well.
We don't know what that may or may not happen, but I hope that we see some savings in our budget.
Correct.
All right, with that, we'll move this forward.
I concur.
Okay, thank you. With the recommendation to approve. Okay. All right, so that brings us to item
5B.
5B, thank you.
Project labor agreement for the Palos Verdes recycled water pipeline project.
And we have our manager of engineering, Wendell Johnson, here to present and provide staff recommendations.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. We have several items on the agenda involving the PV, the Palos Verdes pipeline. And so we'll be providing you with an update later in this meeting, and we'll also be addressing the easement. But to start off this afternoon, I'm here to request the inclusion of the Palos Verdes pipeline project into the project labor agreement with Los Angeles County and Orange County's Building and Construction Trade Council and Signatory Craft Council and Union. But before I get started, I would like to acknowledge Veronica and her team and Kevin for their efforts and hard work for providing much of the information that will be presented here this afternoon. And a quick overview of the project. There's also a map on packet page 6. I will be starting on packet page 8. There's an overall map on packet page 63, which shows you the alignment and the route of the pipeline. The pipeline project itself is it's a 3.5-mile pipeline. There's a lift station located in the city of Torrance, which provides about 330 feet of lift in order for the pipeline to get to its terminus at the Palos Verdes golf course. Project labor agreements, sometimes known as community workforce agreements or project stabilization agreements, are project-specific pre-hire contracts between project owner representatives and local construction unions. PLAs are permitted labor contracts in construction under Section 8F of the National Labor Relations Act. The California Public Contract Code also authorizes California procurement agents to use PLAs. On table 8A of page 8 of your packet, there's a list of projects that the district has under this current PLA, and their status of those projects are also listed in the table A. The PLAs on federal, state, and local public works projects in California are increasingly being used on large projects and mostly small projects, a collection of projects that comprises a larger project. In California in the 1990s, there were approximately 19 PLA contracts that were signed, and this has grown to approximately 122 PLAs between the years 2010 and 2016. Like West Basin's PLA, most of these agreements cover multiple projects. Urban areas account for the majority of the California public sector PLAs. Approximately 1/3 of all the PLAs in the state of California are in the county of Los Angeles. To use a PLA in California, a public entity pursuant to the Public Contract Code 25A must ensure that the agreement has certain protections and provisions for the California taxpayer, which include the following. 1, the agreement prohibits discrimination based on race, national origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, political affiliation, or membership in labor organization in hiring and dispatching workers for the project. 2, the agreement permits all qualified contractors and subcontractors to bid for and be awarded work on the project without regardless of whether they are parties of a collective bargaining group agreement or not. So both union contractors and non-union contractors can bid on the work, and they can also be awarded the work. The agreement contains an agreed upon protocol concerning drug testing for workers who will be employed on the project. That's number 3. Number 4, the agreement contains guarantees against work stoppage. This is what's in it for the district, is that there's a guarantee against work stoppage, strikes, lockouts, and similar disputes on the project. And 5th, lastly, the agreement provides that disputes arising from the agreement shall be resolved by a neutral arbitrator. Some of the benefits of a PLA are: 1, long-term project stability. PLAs address labor issues, establishing cost standards, and help projects stay on schedule by preventing costly shutdowns caused by labor disputes. 2nd, union conflict resolution is included in the PLA agreement. PLAs provide for the same agreement for all workers and prohibits discrimination by unions against non-union job applicants. 3rd, inclusive diversity and safety. PLAs includes establishing goals and requirements for inclusions of small businesses, minority contractors, businesses that meet disability requirements, and sometimes encouraging the hiring of targeted segments of the community, such as veterans and minorities. Also included in PL agreements are training and advancement. For instance, West Basin's PLA offers the opportunity to increase the number of work opportunities of various trades and increase the opportunities for local hire. We have a local hire target of 30% of all positions would be from within West Basin service area. We also have a goal of using 5% of all the labor positions that are at risk. Okay, in addition, we also have a goal of 30% for apprentices. At-risk workers under this current agreement includes workers who income fall 50% below LA County median income, homeless, welfare recipients, history of involvement with the penal system, unemployed, and single parents are all considered at-risk workers. An analysis of a PLA in Sonoma County showed that the local hire provision of that agreement generated more than 3 times as much local employment and local tax revenue compared to if the project had not been done under PLA. Some of the general criticism surrounding PLAs that they increase the cost of construction by requiring the payment of union wages and to non-union workers. However, in California, unless higher wages are negotiated that are higher than the prevailing wages, it makes no difference since all public works construction is covered by prevailing wage laws. I'd like to read the recommendation and answer any questions that the committee or board members may have. And the recommendation is that the board authorizes the general manager to apply the requirements of the PLA labor, of the project labor agreement with Los Angeles, Orange County's Building and Construction Trade Council and Signatory Craft Council and Union to the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project.
Thank you, Wendell. Director Williams, any questions?
Yeah, again, to the general manager. The general counsel, has the general counsel put his thumbprint on this?
I believe so. If I could defer to our executive manager of engineering and operations, Barkev Mazurlian.
Yes, Mr. Directors. Yes, we have conferred with our legal counsel, and they have looked at both the agreement, the PLA, as well as the agreements that we have with other stakeholders. And there's nothing in the agreements that says that we can't do this for this particular project at this time. There is a provision in the PLA that allows West Basin to apply the requirements as we see fit to a project that is not listed in the project labor agreement. So that was, yes, we have considered legal counsel's opinion on it.
Thank you.
And Mr. General Manager, you're familiar with although you came from Department of Water and Power.
I did.
You folks are still under the Public Works, state Public Works requirements, right?
If I may answer the question differently, LA Department of Water and Power also utilized project labor agreement on at least one, if not more, of their projects. Specifically, I believe they were utilizing the PLA on the groundwater cleanup project out in the San Fernando Valley during the time that I was there.
So you are therefore familiar with the prevailing wage clause in those public works projects. So this is nothing new to you.
Prevailing wage is nothing new to the city of Los Angeles. Throughout the 30 years that I've been with the city, I've understood prevailing wage applies to public works contracts. The PLA concept is relatively new to me and to the water system at DWP. But coming here to West Basin, I've come to learn the value that the PLA provides. In particular, Wendell talked about the at-risk population who are able to be targeted for job opportunities. So when you're talking about folks who may be homeless, folks who may be on welfare, folks who may have had in contact with the penal system, are great opportunities to have individuals turn their lives around and enjoy gainful employment. So I think this is a really good thing for us to move forward with for those reasons.
Thank you.
And there's still no other directors.
I see Director Houston's name on the list here. I'm not sure if he's actually there, but we could check in to see.
Director Houston, do you have any comments?
He's not there. It's the computers that we have hooked up in case they would want to be here. So if you'd like, I can shut those down.
Okay, so he's not on there.
No, we don't have any other board members online.
Okay.
All right, fair enough. Basically, what we're doing is just amending the PLA, the project labor agreement, to include as an additional project the recycled water project, Palos Verdes recycled water pipeline project.
That's right.
I think that's a great idea. I think the PLA provides an opportunity, as you said, Mr. General Manager, to give a venue for individuals who could look for some gainful employment and training and so on in the trades, which is a great opportunity for employment, a roadway in that direction. And it also emphasizes local hiring, which is, I think, also another priority that we should focus on. So I'm very supportive of this and agree that we should make the necessary amendments to the PLA to include the Palos Verdes recycled water pipeline project. So we concur that we move it forward to the board.
Absolutely, I concur.
All right. Thank you so much for that support. Thank you, staff, for the work on this. Really appreciate that. So that,
The information calendar. And the first item is the Palos Verdes recycled water pipeline project.
I think actually we have one more action item, which would be item C, if it's okay.
Yes, I don't have it on my agenda, but I think you did send out a subsequent agenda and I didn't make a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Here, it looks like me. So this is regarding the easements that are being secured for the Palos Verdes pipeline project. And I'm sorry,
Okay.
Here, I'll get him a copy.
my apologies.
Well, that's okay.
Veronica, we have our engineering supervisor who will provide the presentation on this particular item and the staff recommendation for it. So thank you, Veronica, please.
So thank you. Nice meeting you in person, Director Alvarez. It's a pleasure, Director Williams, to see you again. So we are here for the adoption resolution of number 0922-1175 for Palos Verdes recycled water treatment project easement. So as we're going to be seeing in a minute, some information in regards to the PV or an update. This project will deliver approximately 240 acre feet a year of recycled water to 7 sites in the city of Torrance and Palos Verdes states. As part of your attachment C, Julie, you can maybe move it to page 103. There is a map attached to this particular memo, and basically that map represents the alignment of the pipeline. And as you can see on the red square area, there is a box that says proposed easement. So there's approximately 160 feet of pipeline that basically will be going through that private road. That private road has been in the past used by other utilities to install pipelines to go from the city of Torrance to Palos Verdes State. And one of the advantages of that particular road is that allows for pipelines to basically go from one city to the other one in a much shorter route instead of going through very long roads on the Palos Verdes State that go in circular motion and that require additional pipeline, additional traffic control, additional disruption to that heavy residential area, as well as reconstruction of streets. So by going through this particular easement, we can get access to Palos Verdes State and basically go to the Torrance Utility Road. We had our design engineer, Kenneth Fleming, as part of this particular project, have a expert as part of the scope of work to basically work with us to do the real estate on the project. And they have prepared appraisal, and essentially the owner of this particular land also prepared their own appraisal. So we were able to review, discuss, and basically go back and forth in regards to the cost of the land. So in order to install this pipeline, we will need two easements. One is a temporary construction easement, so that way the contractor came in, use their equipment, and go out once it's done. And then once we have the pipeline in service, if we ever need to go back again to do some work, some kind of pipeline, we will require 10-foot easement. So the value of the land has been agreed by the owner to be $92,866. So to continue with the process on escrow and the recording of the easement, we're here to get the board to approve the general manager to the following action. So this I will read the recommendation, which is on page 66 on your pack agenda number 5C. The recommendation reads that the board approves, adopts, and authorizes the board president to sign resolution number 09-22-1175 for the Palos Verdes Recycle Water Pipeline Project easement reporting and escrow processing procedures, approving the general manager to accept and sign on behalf of the district, the West Basin Municipal Water District purchase and sell agreement with joint escrow instruction W34. Execute, accept, and assign on behalf of the district the corresponding certificate of acceptance for temporary construction and permanent easements. Execute, accept, and sign on behalf of the district any corresponding escrow documentation related to agreement W34. Accept on behalf of the district any conveyance of the interest in your property easements. And with this, I open the floor for any questions.
Any questions, Director Williams?
Is this okay to sign?
Well, I think if we want to have the complete right-of-way to install the pipeline up to PV Golf Course, it would be in our best interest to sign this. Although I do have my own question as to the recommendation. Do we need to have something in here that would authorize the general manager to release the funds in question, which I believe is stated as $92,866? And maybe that's a question for general counsel, which are not present today.
If I may, Greg, the recommendation was reviewed by our council.
Okay.
And I believe the acceptance and of any corresponding escrow documentation.
Is inclusive of the release of funds?
I believe so.
Okay, as long as I'm authorized to release the funds, then I would say yes.
Okay. I spent a great deal of my early days producing maps like this. This is fun looking at this stuff.
Takes you back.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any additional comments, so we'll move this forward.
I concur.
Okay, thank you. So now I think that takes us to the information calendar.
That does take us to the information calendar, unless there's an item 5D.
No, there is. But I think that,
Information calendar, first item up is the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project update. Mr. General Manager.
thank you, Chair. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge we have with us Tricia Murakawa, who has been with the department supporting this particular project from a community outreach perspective. And now that we're entering into this last phase of the project, we're very fortunate to have her join in today's presentation, which I think we've talked, you and I, about implementing a kind of a gate process for our capital projects. And so I consider this milestone of the project to be gate 4, which means that we're nearing the end of design and we're ready to proceed with advertising the project. And this is a great opportunity to bring the project forward to the board to make sure that we are all on the same page with what the project is, what the project cost will be, what the schedule may look like, and to get that authorization to advertise this project. So it's great that we've had the other 2 items under the action calendar that relate to this. But here we're able to talk holistically about the project. And we have Veronica, our engineering supervisor, here to provide the presentation. So maybe I hand it off to Barkev first to make some opening remarks before we hand it off.
Yeah, Greg, thank you. This is a project, it's unique in some sense. It's going to be the first time with its implementation, will be the first time we get recycled water to the peninsula. It's a water reliability project that would, keep certain sites, 7 sites along the way, green in drier years, and reduce some of the reliance on imported water in the South Bay area. So we've heard the reports like Greg mentioned, and I think Veronica will be able with the presentation to talk about some of the budget, the cost like Greg mentioned, and also touch on some of the critical areas along the alignment that we're going to keep an eye on during construction. We'll touch on those as well.
And we're also fortunate to have some of our stakeholders here in the meeting with us on the platform. If you want to care to also acknowledge our invited guests as well.
Yeah, I believe we have representation from the golf course, Mr. Greg Spiker, and I believe we may have also representation from Cal Water. If I'm not mistaken, I can't see it from here, but we should have representation from both agencies that have agreed to contribute to the project funds to see through its implementation.
And thank you to PV Goss and thank you to Cal Water for being here with us today.
That I'll hand it over to Veronica to start the presentation.
Julie, for those that are not in attendance here in presence, you can find the PowerPoint presentation on page 106 of your package. So this is agenda number 6A. So thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Greg. Again, this is a project. You can go to the next page. So this is a quick agenda of what basically Raquel just summarized right now and a minute ago. So the next slide, please. So yes, the objective of the the Palos Verdes Recycle Water Pipeline project is to bring a supply of water that will be able to be maintained throughout the year. And this particular pipeline is going to be able to bring 240 acre-feet of recycled water to the peninsula, and thus be able to provide water for irrigation to millions, parks, schools, and the golf club. Next slide, please. West Basin currently owns and maintains a recycled water system that terminates at the city of Florence, Calle Mayor, and Anza. And the objective of this project will be basically connecting to that particular pipeline, which you can see on the left-hand side of this slide, and bring the pipeline along the Anza Avenue and make its way across Pacific Coast Highway and eventually make it through the Palos Verdes base to the golf club. As you can see, there is also a differential in elevation of 300 feet. And in order to get the water up the hill, we need to install a pump station, for which, though it took us a couple of years to get the easements with the city of Florence, we have been able to finalize that process, and we're in the process of finalizing that design too. And I will go into the scheduling in a minute. So this particular slide also provides the location of the other additional sites that we're going to be serving along this. As you can see, there are 6 sites in the city of Florence and 1 site in the city of Palos Verdes. Next slide, please. This project is approximately $12.9 million in cost, and there are funds from grants from Prop 84 and Prop 868, as well as from some agreements to our stakeholders, which is Cal Water and Palos Verdes Golf Club. There are other couple of state loans that we have also obtained, which include the California State Clean Water Revolving Fund and the Water Recycling Funding Program, the proposition of. Next slide. So this project, yes, it's been on the works, and we're excited to start moving on into the next stage, which is construction. This project, again, has gone through the preparation of all the engineering documentation, preliminary design, environmental documentation, studies, approvals to get easements, documentations, designs. And one of the things that we had to do when we came to a halt on the pump station appropriation of the easement was basically to decouple the design of the pipeline of the pump station, as the pump station had to be redesigned as there was a new location in which we were basically locating this pump station. So the pipeline is a little bit ahead on the design stages. And in a minute, again, I will go through the schedule. But there are other procurement services that with this, that being on the eve of getting to the construction gate, we have already obtained, which includes the community outreach, construction management. And for community outreach, we have Tricia Murakawa from Murakawa Communications. We went through a competitive bidding process to obtain this particular project, and who's going to be helping us on keeping the public aware of what is happening. Basically, in construction management, community outreach, those are typically services that we like to have a little bit ahead of the construction, so we can set it up and be ready to start construction on the right foot. Next slide. So this particular exhibit is an exhibit that we put together to show the board some of the areas that we are aware of, and we like to maintain and manage, basically any risk assessment and management, be ready for when those construction sites come on board. So one of those is basically on your right-hand corner, upper portion, you can see the location where we are going to be doing a jacking bore operation. There are existing utilities in that area that are kind of shallow and go pretty deep. And in order to get around those utilities, we have to basically install a couple of pits and basically push pipe under those. We have been working with the city of Torrance on the traffic control plans for that particular locations, as it's going to be on Lanza Avenue. And we have basically getting their comments on those, and we're going to be basically providing traffic control plan in that area 24/7. Moving on the clockwise direction on that PowerPoint presentation, you can see PCH crossing. So that it's Pacific Coast Highway. There is heavy traffic along that particular road, and that is under the jurisdiction of Caltrans. We have a permit from Caltrans until the next year, which is November 30th of 2023. So that will allow us to finish the construction on time. And one of those, that particular intersection is also, there are businesses around that area. So again, our community outreach team is going to be helping us to disseminate the information to them, so we can tell them when the construction is going to happen, and that way they can keep the public also informed of the activities there. And moving into the left-hand side of the PowerPoint presentation, you can see a couple of pictures on the top that belong to the current utility road. And the road is used by pedestrians, it's used for horse trailing, it's also used for dog walking. And essentially, there are already existing utilities that travel along that road. So we are on the next adjacent available trench along that. Palos Verdes Estates has a particular code to maintain certain separation of 15 feet from those eucalyptus trees. And because of the existing utilities on the road and the narrow road, basically what we're going to be doing is another operation to include directional drilling. So it's not possible for us to stay away 15 feet away from the trees. However, the other option that we have is to go under. So for that, that's what we're going to be doing. And there's only a couple of locations where the pipeline is going to be introduced and basically be pushed to get to the other end. So this is going to be also one of those particular locations where the road will be closed for the meantime of the construction for the safety of the public. However, we won't be doing open cut trench. Everything will be under. And on this particular picture on the center, you can see an M, and I didn't mention like the map in the center of the PowerPoint presentation is the representation of the alignment, and the stars represent the sites that we're going to be serving along this particular project. And the M represents the master meter. So the master meter will be basically connecting and communicating to the golf club and the Palos Verdes, Agua Seco. basically to determine when water needs to be flowing from one location to the other one, when to close the valves, the pumps, when to turn them on, when to turn them on. The meter also depicts the location where the Cal Water will be taking ownership of the pipeline in the Palos Verdes state. So from the pipeline that comes up from the master meter will be basically under Cal Water's maintenance program once this project has been completed. So into the next page, you will see, it's the next slide. Sorry, thank you. On the next page, you can see on the right-hand side, it's a hill, and it's basically right off the Torrance Utility Road, and this is the location where that master meter will be located at. And then moving to the left, on the magenta color, that's basically the pipeline alignment, and there are some pictures on top of that particular graphic that basically shows the locations of some trees. Again, we have been working with the city of Palos Verdes state to manage the construction around those trees, and those basically we're going to be advising the contractor to instead of using heavy equipment, basically to handle around them as the roots may be into the streets, and again because of the utilities that are already on the street, doesn't allow us to go anywhere. So basically we're going to be observing extreme caution on those particular areas. Into the next slide. And again, one of the very important activities during the construction is to keep the public informed and the stakeholders informed, and anybody else that is that would like to hear about the project itself or the construction activities. And for this, while engineers focus on doing construction, there's also a team that does better talking than us. Sometimes we like, well, this is what it is, you know. So for that, we have gone through the process of selecting from a competitive bidding process a company that basically will help us and basically, you know, provide information to the public in organizing meetings and disseminating information that will be some collateral that will be basically distributed to the public. And for this, we have Trisha Murakawa from Murakawa Communications, who's going to be helping us in that process, and she's going to speak about the community outreach program.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, directors. It's nice to see you today and be able to tell you about our program. Next slide, please.
Can you speak up just a tad?
Sure, I'll try and sit up. So Veronica talked about what the goals are of the Palos Verdes Recycled Water project. And I'll talk about the goals of the construction awareness program. And that is, of course, to keep the stakeholders informed about what the project is and how they could potentially be affected, to gain public acceptance, and then to help move the project through to completion. So essentially to sort of protect the project from schedule and budget increase. And really also always to protect the reputation of West Basin and the relationship that West Basin has with its stakeholders. Target audiences that we will be talking to include, of course, all the residents along the 3.5-mile alignment. As you know, it runs through many residential areas, many multifamily units along Torrance, as well as single-family homes in that area, as well as the many single-family homes in PV. There's several schools. As Veronica mentioned, when we go across PCH, there are several shopping centers. So there's a number of businesses, big businesses that receive deliveries. So we'll be talking to them. As you know, the three major arterials, of course, PCH being a major arterial, but the folks who live and work in those areas, they consider Anza Avenue and Newton an arterial as well, because they use it to cut over to Hawthorne. They use Anza to cut from north to south and south to north. So even though maybe it's not technically a higher level arterial the way PCH is, it's an arterial. So we'll need to keep the commuters aware of that as well as, you know, the HOAs and other environmental stakeholders. So those are the folks we will be talking to. And then we will be using communication tools as we speak to them. So of course, we have our project webpage, which will talk about the project. We'll have an FAQ up there, and any project fact sheets and construction notices will be downloaded there. Construction notices will be the primary communication tool that we will use to talk to folks so that they know about the project and what to expect. Next slide, please. So one of the first things that we'll do is Veronica has been working with our partner cities, PVE and the city of Torrance. So first, before we start any outreach, we'll want to do a meeting with the city staff to make sure that they know what our construction awareness program is. Make sure that they sign off on it. They feel that they have an opportunity to provide input on our template construction notice to make sure that they feel that it's covering everything. And then our fact sheet. Again, the construction notice will be the primary communication tool. After we get their input on that, we'll finalize those pieces of collateral, and then we'll go out and do a high-level presentation to the stakeholders. Like, for instance, and this is also if the city staff would like us to the Palos Verdes Golf Course, to their board members. They have a tennis club as well. I don't know if they have a separate board, but if they do, we would want to make sure that their members know about this project before we start. Any of the commissions in the city of Torrance, in particular the Park and Rec Commission, because we have a couple of connection sites and the booster pump station at one of their parks. So we asked the city staff, would you like us to make a presentation to the Park and Rec Commission? And they were an instrumental stakeholder in this project during the permitting and the environmental clearance process. And we did a couple of presentations to them. So we think that we may need to do one there. But we'll ask the staff, any of the other commissions, like perhaps their water quality in Torrance, their planning commission in Torrance, their traffic commission maybe. And then in Palos Verdes Estates, they have a parkland commission, because trees are going to be part of this and they oversee trees. We may want to do a presentation to the Parkland Commission over there. And then the 4-H Club and the Sierra Club, because they're very active in the Palos Verdes Estates area. And then our very highly engaged stakeholders, the Riviera Little League, because that's where our booster pump station is going to be located, right across from their field. They have a fall league and a spring league. We'll want to make sure that they're aware. And so we'll want to do a presentation to them, as well as to the Southwood Riviera HOA. We work very closely with them during the permitting phase as well. So right after that, we'll do all of those presentations before we start construction. Yes. And then also, once our contractor's on board and we kind of know when we're going to start, we'll want to do a canvas, a door-to-door canvas of all the businesses and all the residents along the 3.5-mile alignment. And we'll want to do that with our fact sheet. We'll have a business card that has our phone number and email so that folks know where to send an email or where to call with any questions or concerns. Everything will go directly to us. We'll do that first canvas before, and then after that, we'll do tailored construction notices, and we will do it door-to-door canvas. And then we'll do pop-ups in the park. We'll hold neighborhood office hours in your neighborhood if we know that the construction activities are going to happen in your area in the next week or two, to give you advance notice. So after we notify the entire alignment, we'll do targeted notifications so that people know when to expect, what to expect, and who to call. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Trisha, with that.
Oh, that's basically, and then of course we'll want to put together a crisis communications plan if anything should happen, but we know that they will, and we'll work with your staff. So that's our program, and I'm happy to answer questions after. Veronica.
So nothing.
Nothing will happen.
With this, I want to also acknowledge Amy Roja, who is the manager of the information department, who has done a tremendous job of helping us putting together collateral, what should be targeted, what kind of information we should be disseminating. Again, like providing information to the public is so super important on every project, construction project, when it's outside of treatment facilities, because it helps, to keep the group informed, and that reduces the amount of flow of questions, to others that probably can concentrate on other things versus, having to worry about what's happening here. So thank you, Amy, for all that work. And moving to the next step, so it's an exciting part, next slide, please. In which this is where we're moving into the next stage, and to look into the construction. So next slide. There you go. Yes, so the next steps is basically, it took a minute to get all permits because there are several jurisdictional entities looking at the pipeline. Again, it's over 3.5 miles of pipeline that we're gonna be installing, and therefore there are a couple of cities as well as various entities that require review and permitting. And during the still, going through the COVID-19 residuals, there's still a backlog of those entities or those jurisdictional areas reviewing plans. But we are happy to be here on the eve of finalizing all of that and start looking forward to a construction bid advertisement in October, which is just basically around the corner. In regards to this, there's also material testing and specialty inspection. As you guys might remember, back in early this year, we presented the construction management consulting services scope of work, and one of the areas there said basically that they will actually be working with the district on-call service or entity to basically facilitate this work. Now, with this project moving into a PLA, there are certain requirements that this material testing and specialty inspections will have to abide, as they need to also be I guess, in an agreement with those PLA languages for those trades and the way that they conduct themselves. So with this, we like to utilize one of the on-call services that we have already obtained a while ago, Smith Emery. We took her about really in July this year for Kevin's project. Smith Emery was selected from a competitive process 2 years ago to basically provide material testing and specialty inspection for PLA projects. And essentially, they have worked already on 3 projects, and they are currently working on the Carson expansion project. One of them was the Gardena Laredo, which is a pipeline project that was completed a few years ago. So we would like to have them basically providing the services, since they are already fully in full knowledge of what the PLA agreement basically is requiring. So will we be requesting a quote and be bringing those results to the board for approval? In regards to what happens after advertisement happens, we will be bringing the results of the bid packages in November for project award, and then sign agreements and issue notice to proceed by December 2022, and our estimated completion will be October 2023. Next slide, please. And not too far away from it, it will be the pump station. We received comments from the pump station this month, and our designer is in the process of addressing all those comments. And our plan is to, again, have a 100% design submittal by the end of this month, and submit again to the jurisdictional entities that are reviewing these plans, and get our permits on November of this year. That will allow us to basically finalize our construction bid package and start advertising in December of 2022. And then come to the board early in the year, next year, and have an agreement notice to proceed by February 2023, and have an estimated completion for that project in October 2023. And with that, I will open up for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams.
Sounds like you have put all the pieces together.
Yeah.
Because, when I first looked at this project, I knew that there's no way we could do it without having a team like this together. Now, how involved will West Basin staff be in these advanced meetings?
On the community outreach meetings? Yes, so I can speak to that, and if you want to add something else, feel free to do that. So yes, so West Basin staff and the community outreach team and our communications department work very closely in the preparation of this. We make sure that from a technical point of view, as well as from a perception view, we review all these materials. When we do presentations to stakeholders, to cities, basically we have presence there. So we are fully involved.
Waste basin will be the face.
Waste basin will be there, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, yeah, but you go ahead for now.
You all done?
No, I'll be back.
Go ahead.
Well, it's a lot to go over and, it's just that, this is gonna take, to a lot of people, it's gonna seem like a long time, right?
If everything
Yeah.
goes as planned, our plans is to finish by next year, October 2020.
Yeah, and plans like this they always go off without a hitch, right? It's one thing about public works projects, infrastructure projects, they always take longer than originally planned for and always cost a little bit more than originally planned for. But we know when you have the proper team in place, that you have a better chance of having a successful project. And the successful project is a project that's done on time and under budget, right? And with the happy constituents along the way. And we know that this is a high-end community. I mean, at the highest end. And we want to make sure that they stay happy and on top of things, and we stay on top of things. And because they are our constituents. Now, we're going to be the mayor on this project, right? They're going to be coming to us all the time. And fortunately, we have a great team in place. And how will you mesh with the construction management part of the project?
Yes, so like you said, it's a team. It's not just a one-person project. We work together, construction management, contractor, community outreach, or internal departments, finance, planning. All of us work together. Planning, helps us with putting all information for the grants. Finance, paying our bills on time, and again, our compliance department too, that basically keep us also, lined up. So once we start construction, the construction meetings will take weekly. And basically the team, the representatives of the departments that are fully involved, that will be there. So one of those would be our community outreach team, that basically they will be there to hear what the next week we're gonna be doing. So we're gonna have these look ahead schedules to look into 2-3 weeks in advance. So we can plan on when we're gonna be in the next couple of weeks, who needs to be notified? Is there a business there that needs a little bit of higher on there because they have deliveries for, I don't know, for gas or for, whatever it is? Or are we doing the jack and board to let, the public, hey, we're gonna be here for 24/7 doing these constructions and basically notify them what is happening to precisely avoid the need of residents calling, outside the team to others that may not have the information because they're not part of that, that component. But basically us be able to deliver that information so they do know how long it's gonna take, what are we doing, and keep them informed when these people wanna be out of there. So again, it's a team that we all get together and everybody gets their piece of task. We all have different expertise areas, and that's the beauty of putting together putting all these experts, on forming, a project that succeeds.
Have you decided on a regular meeting place yet?
Well, I think once we have the contractor in place, we will have that. But there's 3 options. I mean, we always have here the district to meet. This is going to be a large forum. And meetings do tend to be much bigger. There's going to be also city inspectors and people. So we can plan ahead on that. We can have those meetings here. We can also ask one of our cities, like Florence or Colorado States, if they have room plan to go to that places.
Probably would be better to have it in close proximity to the site.
Yeah, the thing is that, yes, we can do that. I mean, the project site is not too far away from here too. So definitely we can have it at the site, but because the pipeline is gonna be traveling, from one city to the one, we're gonna continuously be moving, we're like a moving target on that. Pump station is a little bit different because it's one location, so we'll have the pump station site to meet. So that's the beauty of that, like, it's not moving. But the pipeline is like, just keeps moving, so yeah, but don't worry, we'll have our crew, please.
Yeah, golf course is a nice place to meet. It's very plush. Trying to work on that. Good meeting place for the project team. That's all I have for now.
Okay. So it's gonna be a fun project. Let's open up streets. Hopefully you will find exactly what you've located and shown as underground utilities, and there will be no surprises. Hopefully. But I'd like to reiterate Director Williams, that hopefully, with a lot of projects, they tend to slip and go over in terms of cost. And on this one, we put a lot of time and effort into the planning and the design and the whole management team that's been assembled. So we can come back and say we delivered this project at the end of the project on time and on budget.
I can tell by Veronica's look on her face. She says, "What do you mean? We're gonna do it. Isn't that right? On time, on budget."
On budget. Those are our favorite words to hear.
And we have an appropriate contingency for risk management, right? So that's inclusive of the on-budget part.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned on the materials testing contractor that you're going to use the on-call list, and you're just going to talk to Smith Emery. Do we have more than one testing laboratory on the on-call list?
No, they are currently the only one. When they were hired a few years ago, there was a wide advertisement for this particular task announcing these BLA projects. I want to say that there was about like maybe 5-6 companies that bid on this, and then Smith Emery was the recommended company due to their prices. They had like the best prices at the time.
What is your estimated budget for testing service, materials testing services?
Yeah, so again, typically we will include on the consulting construction management team, but on this particular project, we left it out. So it's a separate item. So we have approximately $200,000 on our budget.
How much?
For this $200,000 in our budget for this particular work. We also have some contingency also aside that. So I think that we're confident that we do that.
And what's going to be the focus of the testing services that Smith Emery is going to be providing?
Yeah, so for the pipeline, there's basically the soils what we need to test. Pavement. It's mostly soil testing what we're doing along the pipeline. For the pump station, you have a little bit of more inspection services. And again, with the PLA is, we have like a specific language who does inspection, who does the testing itself. So, but for the pump station, we have a little bit more like the crowd. We have again, soils too, because there's going to be a little bit of excavation around that area. We have some specialty work that needs to be, the inspection to happen. So there's a little bit more variety in those.
So the $200,000 that you refer to includes materials testing for the pipeline work as well as the pump station work. That's all inclusive.
Yes.
Is the CM firm going to handle both? And I know we're bidding 2 separate contracts for construction purposes. But is the CM firm handling both?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's only the contractor who is doing separate work. Because of the permitting process that we have to go through, that's why it took us a little bit longer to get the bid packages.
And it's probably worth it here for the difference in the work.
Yeah.
Between pipeline work and pump station work.
We provide continuity of the inspection, the quality management, as well as our material testing and inspection.
So the pump station work starts about 2 months later, if I recall, your illustration that you had up earlier, than the pipeline work. So
Yes.
there's about a 2 month lag, but they're both complete at the same time. And you had alluded to that on the pump station work, there will be a field office that's gonna be spec'd into the project contract document. So maybe Director Williams, that after a couple of months, we'll have both of the, since it's the same CM firm, the weekly project meetings at the project office where the pump station's gonna be.
Hey,
Convenient.
yes.
Okay. In the on-call services contract, when you, Smith Emery provided it, did they provide their schedule of fees?
Yes, there is a rate sheet for the different various testing that they do and inspectors that they utilize.
Okay. So they will be abiding by their existing schedule of fees.
Yes, and I can recall if it was also included on the latest board memo. I want to say it was in July of this year, in which basically there was conversation in regards to Smith Emery doing the Carson expansion project. But I can be, I'm not sure if we need to put the rate as part of the memo.
If I may ask here, Kevin Cullen, who's the project manager on the other project where we're using Smith and Emery, they abide by their rates and fees?
Yes, for underground repair.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's set fees for different types of tests.
Okay. Okay. The other thing is, when I advertised it, you showed it in October. Will this be coming back in the contract documents? Will they be coming back to the board for approval of bid documents and authorization to bid?
Authorization to bid?
But this is just informational item, right?
Correct. So do we want to have a meeting specific to the authorization to release the bid?
I'm asking the question.
Okay.
I'm not understanding.
A lot of my experience has been that when contract documents are ready to go out to bid, and you go back to the governing board, and you have the governing board approve the contract documents and authorize the advertisement to bid.
Is that what we do? You don't just go out to bid, right?
We were not planning on doing that, but
I think you ought to. I mean, I think we should approve the bid package before it goes out.
Okay, we certainly, if that's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
desire of the
a
board.
project like this,
That's typically how I've always run jobs and seen jobs run.
Okay,
we'd like to turn this info item into an action item to the next board with,
I think that would be great if we can have that for the pipeline.
so we don't lose on the schedule.
Right, because we probably don't have the bid package ready for the pump station, right? And for the pipeline. So that way we can bring it next Monday?
Yeah, maybe we can come back to that.
I mean, it's, if you,
We
Okay.
can do that. I do have a couple of other questions. In terms of the budget, the overall budget is going back to the presentation early on, you put private project cost and funding. So the total estimated cost of this project is the $12,904,000. Okay. And so the majority of that is going to be financed through a series of grants and or contributions by Cal Water and the Palos Verdes Golf Club. Okay. But a portion of that is going to be per the project cost and funding table which you presented, a state loan, even that it's albeit a very nominal interest rate. That's going to be repaid over what period of time? 20 years?
I want to say 15, but
We'll come back.
we'll come back with that information.
I'm just thinking about the overall cost of the project. We're going to be selling water, but the cost of the water to produce versus the revenue of the water is going to just cover that cost, if it even covers the cost of producing the water. So the cost of the pipeline itself is something that then is going to be repaid from by the district from potable water sales. One aspect that I'd like to see us maybe look at is instead of borrowing $3.9 million, albeit at a very nominal rate, assuming it's a 20-year loan, which is pretty typical for a state revolving loan fund, that's going to be still another $3.9 million that we add on to our bonded indebtedness column, and it's going to cost us about $250,000 a year in payments. So to reduce that burden and not, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I think that kind of conversation would be better held with the general manager,
Well,
not with the staff who's just working on the project. They don't have the authority to change the way things are. So I think it should talk to the general manager about that. That's the way I see it.
with all due respect, I'm talking to the general manager and, everybody.
No, it's not.
But you got it.
Not,
I just
not,
look
What do you
at
have for me,
staff
Director?
because-
looking at the expression on their faces, I don't think so.
What do you have for me, Director?
So, let me finish, okay? Is that maybe we ought to look at funding this through existing reserves instead of taking on additional debt.
And we could potentially have that as part of the motion to have this considered in the Monday meeting, right?
That would be a good idea.
Okay, so your colleagues can talk through that?
Yeah.
Okay,
So that was where I was headed, that it would be, can you guys look at the alternative instead of borrowing the money, albeit at a very nice interest rate, that we just go ahead and pay for this out of existing reserves.
we can use a
And
pay-go
not increase
instead.
our bonded indebtedness any more than we need to do. Because at the end of the day, recycled water pipelines do cost a lot of money, and, in this case, it will never generate any revenue. And that's a pipeline. The water sales basically cover themselves, if that. So the pipeline costs are always going to be subsidized 100%. So in order to reduce that impact on our ratepayers, since they've already paid for some of these types of projects in the sense that there's money in the reserves, that we don't go ahead and take advantage of that. We'd like to see that looked into.
Okay, and so what we would be doing is coming back with a recommendation presumably not to go forward, and the reasons for either, whatever the recommendation is.
I would like to see the recommendation if it can be done to finance it with the existing reserves.
Okay, and we'll have that for the Monday board meeting to accompany the contract for the pipeline as a part of that.
So going backwards a little bit now in terms of where we did talk about having the contract bid documents approved and having the board authorize bidding. So we'll move that into a formal recommendation, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Director Williams, that you bring that back at the next board meeting, which is this coming Monday. The bid documents, I assume, are completely assembled already, or if not completely close enough that you have a bid package that would be available on Monday.
Well, we would post it on Friday, right? So it'll be in
Right.
advance.
And so if that doesn't present any additional burden to the staff, then let's go ahead and bring that back so that this thing can move forward and be done with that portion of the effort.
Fantastic.
Okay? All right. With that, I think we're done with that particular.
No, I have one last thing here, one last thing, and this is concerning the pushing of pipe. I've had some experience with that in improved area. And sometimes you get big surprises. So just wondering how are you going to go about keeping an eyeball on things and make sure you don't push the pipe through something very important?
Yes, so I mean, we're relying a lot on some of the structures that had been pothole already as part of the design when the project design started, as well as the potholing that will happen during the construction. And essentially, we're still going, I believe, and we're still below all those utilities to try to avoid them. Typically, we believe that it should be fine, but again, we're just basically using the information that we have available and that we can use on the field. In our experience, contractors push pipe at a rate that is not too fast, so they can always slow down the process and basically do the corresponding adjustments to keep pushing pipe. Again, we're going with the data that we have and the information that we're going to be getting into the field.
Okay. I would be very cautious. Thank
Do
you.
you recommend any particular technology or anything of that matter
No.
to
Just be careful.
enhance our?
Just remember that you're pushing on pipe into unknown areas and you're just pushing it. So just be careful.
And I know that at LADWP, there was experience using a ground penetrating radar technology to help enhance the identification of substructures. I don't know if we've looked into anything like that, and if we want to consider sensitive areas that might deserve a little bit more scrutiny, to Director Williams' point.
Yeah, so like in the past, I've seen like jacking boards, for example, like the contractor sends like when they're pushing pipe, they're like, they use like some other type of equipment when they're starting to push the pipe, so when they can sense it and stop, something happens. It prevent any breakage. And then once the casing has been installed, that's when the pipeline is basically installed there. But yeah, when the casing is being installed along the way, they're extremely helpful.
Well, just remember, they want you to push the pipe because they're concerned about their trees, right?
So that would be the directional drilling that we're going to be utilizing. So that's where it looks a little bit more like a curve going on the ground, and on the jacking board is more like the pits that go to the same elevation on the depth. Sorry, not elevation, but the depth. And essentially, the casing is first installed, and the contractors go very slow at a slow rate. Once the casing is in, then the pipeline is a piece of cake. But yeah, it's definitely a slow process that does take a while, and that's why it's one of our areas of, that we're gonna be keeping, extreme, caution because traffic control plan needs to be there for 24/7 and, it's in front of houses. So yes, it's an area that will
Okay.
be alert.
Any other questions,
That's it.
comments? Okay, I think we're done with that item.
All right, fantastic.
All right, so.
Thank you so
moving-
much, team. Thank you so much, Tricia. Really appreciate it. And I believe you're going to give me media training for the crisis management, right? You and Amy. Looking forward to it.
The next item up is the discussion of recycled water filling station program. And, General Manager introduced this item. But before you do that, I do want to thank you for putting this item up for discussion. We brought this up at a recent meeting with the ongoing drought and especially in the last 2 weeks, the need to eliminate landscape irrigation. It was convenient for some folks, if they had access to recycled water, to be able to go take either a water buffalo down to a filling station or bring in jugs, etc. And have recycled water available they can bring out to those sites that are not on a recycled water pipeline service. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that, and there's a lot of demand, potentially, and we have a lot of large homeowner associations and so on that have landscape, crews, and they would avail themselves of that, ability, as well as individual members, I think, and you're probably familiar with it, Mr. General Manager, the city of Los Angeles has a program like that where, individual homeowners can come and avail themselves of recycled water. And there are other agencies that have similar programs for both individuals and for companies that provide services. So I'm really excited about this and I'm looking forward to the presentation of us moving forward with one.
Okay, fantastic, Director, and thank you for the vision and the leadership that you're providing on this very topic. In fact, I believe it was the September 2nd special board meeting when the board had a consensus vote to provide the direction on this. And so I'm happy to have our Assistant General Manager, EJ Caldwell, brief the committee here on where we are. But as a part of that, I also want to acknowledge a guest invite who just joined the meeting, David Donnell, online, who he and I had a conversation about interest in recycled water being made available to the Palos Verdes Peninsula. And because of my awareness of LADWP's recycled water fill station program, I suggested to him that maybe that could be an alternative way of getting recycled water to the community on the peninsula. And truth be told, perhaps the way of going about that wasn't as fast track as maybe what is envisioned here. And so I've asked him to join in to hear the conversation today to give more hope in terms of fast tracking this kind of opportunity. And so with that, I want to turn it over to our Assistant General Manager to report where we are so far. And I believe we plan to come back in the Monday meeting with even more information.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Greg. Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee and board. I'm glad you noted that it is somewhat recent to have this request move forward, but I did want to point out that West Basin staff has explored this opportunity before. It appears as though every drought period provides an opportunity for us to look at such things, but unfortunately, over the years, we've kind of tried to work with our retail agencies. West Basin as a wholesaler provides a bit of a unique opportunity to work individually with homeowners and, as we mentioned, the HOAs. So we do want to look at the differences between some of the retail agencies that do provide this service and a wholesale agency like West Basin Municipal Water District. But in the very short amount of time since you originally provided this direction, West Basin staff has been meeting internally to discuss the opportunities and actually had an excellent opportunity to learn more about this opportunity just last week. So with that, as you mentioned, I wanted to acknowledge that California is enduring its third year of consecutive drought. With this in mind, West Basin's Board of Directors and West Basin staff has been very responsive when it comes to our drought overall regional response, including stepping into our third stage of our drought contingency plan. And with that, we've done extensive outreach, and we see this as a potential opportunity to further that outreach. Just last Friday, West Basin staff actually met with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power out at 2 of their specific sites. The first was the LA Glendale Water Reclamation Plant, where they have a permanent recycled water filling station. And when I say permanent, they have the infrastructure to do this at any point in time. However, they typically only do it under a drought declared emergency. When they do that, West Basin staff had an opportunity to see exactly how they do that, exactly how much space, and exactly how they do it in a safe and responsible manner by educating all of the individual users of that recycled water and the process in which they load that water, the limitations of 300 gallons per user, and how they verify that use, and of course the educational aspect of it. It was actually pretty interesting to watch, if I could just describe it very briefly. As each car individually pulls in, they meet with that driver. They check to see if they have an identification card, meaning that they've gone through that training. If they haven't, they actually provide a QR code where they're able to kind of scan that, pull it up on their phone, watch that video, answer a few general questions, and then of course they work with LADWP staff to help load that water. We actually have some photographs that we can send to the board, just kind of showing the infrastructure, because again, there is some permanent infrastructure that they've constructed there, and to do that. It's also worth noting that one of the things that West Basin really wanted to learn more about was the number of staff members and the hours in which they do this. So they have anywhere from 2 to 4 permanent staff members there on site to assist when they are open. And that, of course, is important to West Basin because we wanted to gauge exactly the skill level and the knowledge base that they have. And I have to say, I was quite impressed. Their staff had actually traveled to Northern California where they actually learned about their program there. And when they came down to implement it in the LADWP service area, and worth noting, they began their program in 2016. So they had the benefit of all of that past experience in this current drought crisis. They were able to kind of just reopen, work with the Department of Public Health, and were able to start delivering water fairly quickly. It's also worth noting that we also learned a little bit from Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. We reached out to their general manager, Dave Peterson, had great conversations about how quickly they were able to act. Obviously, they're a state water project dependent area, and so we were able to learn kind of all of the intricacies of their program and the speediness in which they did it. And again, I want to point out that as a retail customer, they had the benefit of doing this back in 2016 as well. So once it's done, I'm pleased to say that in future droughts, it's going to be that much easier. Our hope is to explore the potential for a permanent site, possibly at the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility, as well as maybe some other remote sites, because I would point out that once we went to their permanent site, very close by at the LA Zoo, in fact, they actually have what I would say is a fairly simple program. They operate 1 day per week to residential customers. It's a very slow process, but they do that as well. So you could find alternative or remote locations within their service area, again, to provide the service. I would like to just point out a few other things in which we learned. We asked a lot of questions, so I want to thank all of the West Basin staff that went there. We had a group of 4 of us, and we asked a lot of questions. So it's important to note that within the LADWP service area, which is pretty large, they serve, when open, anywhere from 2,500 gallons to 3,000 gallons. So we're not talking about a lot of water over the year, and it depends on how many days you're open and providing that service, but that was somewhat unique. Secondly, they find that the users of this recycled water typically travel about 6 to 10 miles. So they're all within a semi-close radius. They do have residential customers, but they did want to point out that typically The residential customers usually have very large landscapes and sometimes ranch or large gardens and farming. And they even pointed out that while they do offer a specific residential customer opportunity, they also have their own commercial side of this. So residential is free, commercial costs money. And it's worth noting, they feel that there's a little bit of crossover between those two based off of the number of customers that come by. Because a lot of times they'll see the same customers come in the morning and they'll see a second pass through in the afternoon. So those, that 300 gallon limitation, they find that a lot of people are seeking additional water. And it should be noted that it's not a violation of their rule. It is 300 gallons per visit. So they can obviously visit more than once per day. So our next steps, we feel like we've learned a tremendous amount by meeting with LADWP and Las Vegas Municipal Water District. And it's really important to note the close coordination that we have with them. They have offered West Basin copies and documents related to all of their permitting processes, as well as all the materials related to education. That'll speed the potential for West Basin to pursue this. Secondly, LADWP offered to assist us in the permitting process directly because they've done this and they're in the process of exploring additional opportunities. And thirdly, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power would like to partner with us on a potential site, possibly at the Edward C. Little facility, because they see this as a great opportunity to potentially offer recycled water to the west side of their service area. So they see this as a close collaboration. They would like to discuss that further with West Basin, possibly including funding for the infrastructure and possibly including staff, which again is one of West Basin's key concerns. So I'll just cover a few of the next steps. We will be setting some meetings up internally. I know that there's a desire to move as quickly as possible. But we need to kind of look a little bit about the infrastructure at Edward C. Little. So the first would be an internal meeting to decide or meet to identify safe and reliable potential locations. There is a significant space required. You do have backed up traffic, you do have backed up large trucks, and so you need ample space to actually pull through where they can actually take the time to go through that video I just mentioned, and then of course move their car in to get filled and then move that out. Secondly, as I mentioned, the exploration of those partnerships. West Basin has a retail component of this. We have all our retail agencies. West Basin is a wholesaler. Really needs to have the support of those retailers as far as providing their customers with direct access to that water. That would impact their sales, and it is something that we need to work out with them. Third, we need to develop a cost estimate for any construction needs. Again, as I mentioned, it's great seeing the LADWP site. You can see the permanent nature of their infrastructure. However, you can see that the quick and speedy delivery that they've constructed is not complex at all. Fourth would be to work with LADWP to initiate the permitting process. We have already begun the process, and Uzi and her team have started to look and see what the key concerns are. First and foremost, it sounds like we would need to create a new engineering report, which would be somewhat of a concern, but not a huge hill to climb. Secondly, would be to work with the Department of Public Health, State Water Resources Control Board, and the Division of Drinking Water, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Again, working with LADWP, we feel like we have the process, we have the roadmap to accomplish this. And last but not least, utilizing everything that we learned and saw on site at LADWP, we would need to begin the process of developing our own logistics, on-site protocols, and our outreach strategy. And again, this is we're at the beginning stages. I'm very excited about what we've learned in the last 2 weeks. So it's been a huge learning curve. We feel like this is a real potential, but I really want to point out that we really need the support of our retail agencies. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Director Williams, do you have any questions, comments?
Comments, great idea. I first got introduced to this, it was back in 2018 in Austin, Texas, at a water reuse symposium there. But they have also, they have what they call a bulk water, they call theirs reclaimed water, but we would call it recycled water. But they have several sites where they have these, you can go up there with a big old water truck. Contractors can go there and fill up with multiple tons, I guess you would say. They go beyond pounds, I mean gallons of water. So whatever we could do, and especially making it where, I don't know how much is 300 gallons of water for residential. Is that, I can't visualize that. I know, I look at two 50-gallon drums and I say, oh, that's a lot of water. But 300 gallons, that seems like a lot of water. So how did they go over that?
While we were on site, we actually saw a couple of trucks with their, they're kind of built out and have these large drums. They're pretty large.
Yeah.
It looked like it was either headed to a construction site or a very large property.
Very large property. Very large residential property.
That's what they said.
Homeowner associations, for example, would have 300 gallons. You would use that in a day.
Well, I gotta tell you, I am all for it. Whatever it takes to get it done and to make it where it's a good use of our water, because we're always looking for water efficiency. So there you go. I would definitely support that. And how you fund that, of course, that's another thing. It'd probably be another recycled water giveaway. I mean, that's the way it is with recycled water, but yeah, I'm all for it. And if you might, I just look at the city of Austin and talk to them about their what they call it, I think I said it.
Reclaimed water.
Reclaimed water, bulk water filling facility. And I remember being there and they had these big stations, but again, it was folks coming by, contractors coming by in water trucks. And they would drive off with a lot of water. But I never thought of it being something for residential. But if it can work, even better. And I think
Take your 50-gallon tank.
Huh?
You can take your 50-gallon drum.
I don't think so. It wouldn't fit in my Forerunner. But yeah, I support it. I support the effort and whatever efforts we need to do to study it and see and look at the feasibility of it and locations. I know what comes to mind to me is it's the Little course is one site. The Marathon is another site. Torrance, there you go. We got 3 already. Got to do it. Let's get busy. Thank you.
Would it please the chair to maybe invite a comment from the public if that would be appropriate?
That would be appropriate. If there is someone from the public that wishes to make comments, I'd love to hear them right now.
Okay, so perhaps if David Donald, if you are interested in sharing a remark, please do so.
Hopefully you can hear me okay. I apologize, I logged on last minute. I would, and thank you, Mr. Reed and Commissioner Williams. I would also encourage the board to take a look at the city of Healdsburg in Northern California. They established a program a couple years ago where they're allowing commercial deliveries to residents, and the residents simply have tanks on their property where the commercial tankers will deliver water to the residents, and their tanks are not hooked up to any pipes on their properties. They simply use it for hand watering for their landscaping. And I think that would be an excellent opportunity, especially for what I had talked to Mr. Reed about getting some water up to the Rancho Palos Verdes area. We would reduce day trips from cars going to the Edward C. Little facility. So I think that's definitely an opportunity that should be looked at. It sounds very similar to what Austin is offering.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any additional comments? And you're free to make comments later if we have some additional discussion, so don't be bashful.
Yeah, I would just say that, when you ask about 300 gallons being a lot, for a typical yard, maybe not in the Redondo Beach area, but in the Rancho Palos Verdes area or on the peninsula, 300 gallons of water is typically not enough for even one day of watering. So typically in the city of Healdsburg, they're delivering about 500 gallons to 1,000 gallons to residents at a time. The problem for a resident is that water is very, very heavy, and that's why the city of LA limits residents to only 300 gallons per pickup, because it's actually very dangerous to take more than that without the proper vehicle.
Yep, I can see that.
Thank you for that comment. Anything else?
That's it for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining on at such a late notice. I'm sorry I didn't get that notice to you earlier as I intended to do so.
Just taking off on Director Williams' comments and David Donnelly's comments. One of the questions I had is we kept referring to 300 gallons. And it seemed like that was a limitation. So my question is, why would we have a limitation of 300 gallons?
I think from LADWP's perspective, it was for safe application. And really, I want to point this out because you have to look at the fact that West Basin is a wholesaler versus a retailer. In this case, LADWP provides a free service to residential customers. When it comes to construction and dust control and all of these different things, they would typically should go through the commercial side of things where they have it metered and they're charging them. So there is a significant difference between what they're doing. In the comment that I just heard with the commercial delivery, when you get into the commercial delivery, you have to look at, are we paying somebody to deliver that? Is somebody taking that water and then selling it? And what aspect of that and what role the retailer has? Because we've inquired, and this would be a great example of the PV area. We've inquired with our retailer up there and I think the initial flow of the request from West Basin up to Cal Water, and they sent it back to us. And so it really is, you have to ask yourself, well, whose role is this and how can we coordinate and cooperate? And I found that with discussions and with the will to make it happen, it's possible, but we always have to weigh those issues, commercial, residential, who's going to use this water and how much.
Go ahead, Director Williams.
I mean, it really is very, very, very difficult to service the peninsula because you have one side, the other side, the side of Torrance side where we're now getting water up the hill because we can. But can we get it over to the ocean side? And that, your 300 gallons is not going to cut it, right? That's where we have to be looking at the bulk, having a bulk station up there some kind of way for them to be the 300 gallon deliverer, and they become a retailer, right?
I did mention that in their service area, and again, we really saw the rush of cars. We got there at the right time and we got to see exactly what they provide. And it was really interesting to see that a lot of the cars that get serviced actually return in the afternoon. So they're coming multiple times. And so the idea would be if you could potentially provide that service up there, maybe people would come more than once or they come, a second or third time if their property required that. And again, I just want to reiterate, I think that it's in West Basin's best interest to make sure that whatever our plan is, that we're doing it in close coordination with our partners, our retailers.
So I'd like to see this implemented sooner rather than later. And basically, it shouldn't take very long.
You just said it.
What's that?
You just said it. It shouldn't take that very long.
Take very long. And so if we're going to involve the City of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, I think that's fine later, but I think we ought to just run with it, get it permitted, set it up, and then they can come and participate, as well as other organizations. And we would then have the opportunity to structure any agreements that were needed, and take care of it that way. But it would be best to move forward without Los Angeles Water and Power right now, because I think that will just delay it. And I think we're very qualified to move forward with just getting it permitted under our existing Title 22 permit. That's not that difficult a task to do. It would take about maximum should take about 3 months. In terms of stations and so on, I think Director Williams was pretty much on target. We have 3 facilities that we control, where we do have recycled water, and we probably have standpipes. So as you alluded to, EJ, it doesn't take very much at the facility you saw to actually set something up, so that the public can come and fill up there. I like very much the idea of the bulk, making it available on a bulk basis, where somebody can come in with a big water truck and fill those up. I think that we should charge for commercial, and those would be commercial activities with your landscape contractors, etc. We should charge them for the water. We do. And we should set up a cost to recover the full cost of recycled water when we sell it. And I think you'll find that we'll probably have a very viable customer base for that. And then for our smaller residential customers, I'm not quite sure it should be free. I think, if they're using water out of the tap, they're paying through their meter. We should then charge also there. But with that, something maybe we can talk about a little bit more after we get some feedback from residential customers. But at first, just set it up so that we actually recover the cost of the water. So, if you can look into those activities and doing it that way. But we have 3 sites. The 2 sites in Carson and in Torrance are not next door to, but a lot closer proximity for folks coming down from the hill. So they can use those sites. We'd have to think about, when that water is going to be available. The residential side, probably Saturdays would be their preference, but commercial people, I don't think have a preference. So whether we do it on a weekday basis, pick a day of the week or multiple days of the week would be probably something that would work. But that's something that operationally you can get a feel for. The bigger thing is let's just get this thing permitted and set it up at least at those 3 sites, so we have the ability to dispense either to a small residential customer or on a bulk basis where we would be filling up a water tank.
Can I clarify, when you said the 3 sites, so you said the Juanita Mill McDonald Regional Water Recycling Facility in Carson?
Right, that's the Carson plant.
Okay. We could definitely take a look at that. And then the other one was the Torrance site. Are you referring to the Torrance refinery site?
Not me.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I was.
She's talking about that one. But I said, now we're gonna put this pipeline right there on the Anza to push water up the hill. It's close by. That's the one I'm looking at. Make it a little bit bigger.
And I hope I did mention this. One of the partnering opportunities we're considering exploring would be the city of Torrance, and obviously working with them because they could actually provide a potential site. And if they wanted to, they could provide a potential permanent site. But I'm just trying to
tell you a site that would be easy to do right now, but it wouldn't be ready till late next fall. At the pump station, where you're gonna have recycled water, you can just set up a standpipe there for people coming and taking recycled water, and that would be another site, and easy enough to do. It's part of the construction. It wouldn't be a big deal to add that on, and that would be a excellent location for that.
We'll pull maps up and look at where the standpipes are. We've already discussed kind of looking at that aspect. One of the things I'll warn everybody about is that where we were, I got to see the perfect flow of traffic. They stress traffic control over and over and over. It might be difficult at a small park where the pump station is to be located. And, for those watching, I wouldn't want to frighten anybody as far as traffic goes. And then, of course, the Torrance Refinery poses several issues. Even the Carson facility, because of the traffic. But like I said, we can look at all of the options. I was very pleased to see that I'm glad we went out there, actually, was the LA Zoo. You would drive by, you would walk by, you wouldn't even notice it until they set it up. And so it's not a permanent basis. The opportunity to do it is permanent. But what they do is they send out a team in the morning. They said it's about 4 or 5 people to set it up. And then once it's up, they have hoses and they'll just pull it straight out of the ground. So I just want to make note that we'll look at everything and we're excited about this opportunity.
So I understand too, that before we can do any of this, we have to look at the feasibility, the economic feasibility, the environmental feasibility, which means traffic control and all that. And we have to look at all of the feasibilities.
And that, my understanding is the charge that was given to us on September 2nd is to come back to the board with the assessment.
Yes.
And I think everything that, the team has done so far is constructive towards that end. And once we get in the direction to go forward, then we can implement, the scope that you guys are describing now.
Well, hopefully we'll do that on Monday. They can give you the direction to go forward so that this thing can move and we can get this thing done sooner rather than later. One of the things I'm not sure, I'm going back now to we're going to need a report, Title 22 report to give to DDW so that our permit can be amended and then they'll bless it and give it to the regional board. We started looking at bringing somebody in to do that. I believe we probably have an on-call consultant that can do that. Maybe that's something. It shouldn't be a very much, it needs to come back to the board. It shouldn't be a very large dollar amount to do that study.
Okay, we can do that. If it pleases the chair, David Donnell from Rancho Palos Verdes would like to make another remark.
Oh, go ahead, David.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think that there are several opportunities to possibly tap into the purple pipe that's existing. I think that you mentioned the Torrance Refinery. I think that there's existing pipe running along, I think it's Del Amo, through several areas of Torrance, and so that might be an alternative to consider while you're trying to figure out what you can do at the Edward C. Little plant, that I think will have a little more difficulty with the concerns with traffic going in and out. But I again would encourage you to consider continuing to think about what I suggested, which is allowing commercial delivery with somebody who would pay for the water. I think I've already had discussions preliminarily with Cal Water, and it would simply be a matter of them installing a meter, and it could even be on existing purple pipe, so that somebody could pay for it. Again, you're reducing car trips up and down. If you're focusing, again, being greedy, I would focus on the peninsula where I live. You'd reduce car trips and pollution by allowing a bulk hauler to bring the water up. I think that the other thing to consider is that the pipeline that you're about to construct, I think the end point of that pipeline is Palos Verdes Golf Course. And I think that there is a tank that is contemplated on the golf course, but I would guess that the city of Palos Verdes would be very, very resistant to allowing any public access to that course. going to want a lot of traffic going through their neighborhoods. So I think that, again, as you think about that pipeline, you might want to think about where you could allow public access, maybe along PCH or some other place, because once it enters into the city of Palos Verdes, I think they'd be very resistant to allowing any traffic to access that water.
Thank you. Some excellent points you made, David. So kind of moving forward, I think if we can move this forward on parallel path, we move forward with the permitting part, and then while that is moving along, we can also be working on the locations and the modification to the locations for access. Doesn't have to be sequential. We don't need to wait for one to do the other. Parallel processing is a very efficient way to go.
Agreed.
So just for clarification, is this going to be a board agenda item for the full board on Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be an info item so we could present the options that we've evaluated so far.
Well, should we make it, if you need direction, I'd like to move it forward, so let's just make it an action item. For
Okay, there we go.
If that's okay, so.
Yeah.
Like we did before. like
All in
we did
favor.
this.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, with that, it's 4:30. We have two more items, but I can't stay. I gotta go pick up a car.
I move we adjourn.
Huh?
We won't have a quorum if you leave.
So that's why I said I move we adjourn, so.
Well, staff certainly spent time putting together a monthly report for the engineering section and the operations section. So I guess we owe them a debt of gratitude for putting that together.
And actually, thank you.
Keep it.
You did a very excellent job today.
Thank you. Thank you for that compliment. And thank you, staff, for all of your efforts for
Motion on the
preparing
floor.
for today.
I'm sorry?
There's a motion on the floor.
What's the motion?
We adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, directors. And thank